need a light so I can smoke away this pain. I need a light so I can smoke away.
Welcome, everybody, to the second episode of Elevated Culture, brought to you by The Clinic. I'm your host, Dan Mosley, and with me is Matthew Stafford. How you doing, Matthew?
Doing all right, Dan. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. It's 420 week. Everyone's pretty hyped here. I don't know about yourself. Yeah, right? We got some specials going on at The Clinic. I don't know if you want to fill us in on those at all, but we do have some 420
I know
specials.
a little bit about them. I don't know if I know everything about them, but I can give it a go.
I think you might know.
At the Clinic stores, people, April 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st, we got 99 ounces of flower all day long, brought to you by the Bank Genetics at the Clinic Colorado locations. You like concentrates? We got you covered. Don't worry about that. The lab is bringing you butter, batter, sugar, and sauce. Coming to you at discounted prices. We are cutting these in half, people. We got butter at $20 a gram. We got batter at $25, sugar at $30, and sauce at $35 per gram. And guess what? That is not all. On April 20th, the day of all days, people, the first 10 customers at each location will get a gram of the lab sauce for $4.20 with purchase. Ooh. Yeah, that is a good deal right there. And then again, on 420, from 4:20 p.m. until 5 p.m., it is a BOGO, people. That is buy one, get one half off. Equal or lesser value on all Bank Lab products. And that is from 4:20 to 5 p.m. on April 20th. So swing by between the 18th and 21st if you want to get some deals.
You're going to get some great deals, folks. That's in all 4 locations located in your Denver metro area. Matthew, thank you for smashing through those specials. Oh my gosh, if people could even keep up. I love it.
I don't know if I can keep up, you know? The information just keeps coming.
Well,
but
it's 420 week. Everyone's really excited.
Yeah, so, everyone is really excited. Are you doing anything big? There's a lot going on.
There is. There's a lot of stuff going on around town. I'm actually just going to do the same old thing. Just sit back, smoke some stuff, and hang out. And then we'll talk about what we token about too.
Oh, I like that.
You like
we'll
that
do.
segment?
Maybe the next time we record, we'll do a what you token about 420 edition.
Ooh,
who knows?
I like it.
Yeah, I like that. But there's a lot going on. Everyone, just please remember to be safe, be responsible, understand what's going on around you, and enjoy your 420. Happy 420 from the Clinic.
Happy 420 indeed. So this is our second podcast. As we said before, we will be having a very special guest tonight.
We got a very special guest.
Yes. Jay, our head breeder for the Clinic for the Bank Genetics 2014 Cultivation Master of the Year, is going to be joining us in just a minute here, and we're going to get some great info out of that guy. He is the most knowledgeable man I've ever met in this company, and I'm sure he'll give us some great content. So
I'm excited about this. I'm excited about listening back to this. I think it was a great interview.
Yes.
Yeah. So without further ado, everyone, Jay from the Bank Genetics.
There he is. He's coming in right now. All right, Jay. So we're sitting here with Jay, our head breeder of the Bank Genetics, and 2014 Cultivation Master of the Year of the Bank Genetics, obviously a division of the Clinic. And we're just going to have a little interview with him. He's sitting here right here. How are you doing today, Jay?
Fantastic. Thanks, Dan and Matt, for having me.
Thanks for stopping by, Jay.
Of course, yes. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for your time. I know you're a busy man. We want to jump right in and maybe just get some personal info on you. What's your history with the Clinic and the Bank Genetics? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I joined the Clinic staff right at the get-go in 2009, sort of after the Cole memo when, we got the green light here in Colorado for the dispensary industry to start. I was one of the sort of founding employees of the company, which at the time was, kind of a group of our college buddies that sort of got together to do this. And we, started with one small little shop and have grown it from there into the sort of empire it is today.
And that's awesome to hear. I think that like you being with the clinic and the bank from the very beginning, with your group of college buddies, what you're talking about right now, that kind of leads into, what the bank's motto is, cultivating trust. And you've been with this since the very beginning, and you've seen this come, I'm not going to say full fruition yet because we're not there, but we've made, strides by leaps and bounds. I would say as you've come through, this from the very beginning to where you are now, what has been kind of the most exciting part of the industry, and, kind of where do you see it going from here?
To me, the most exciting part is just seeing the evolution of the industry as it's matured and as the sort of negative stigmas surrounding it have withered away. When this first started, it was a very taboo thing. It was very sort of touchy that we were operating if we were at events, things like that. It was sort of looked at with a cross-eyed look. These days, I think folks in the general public have really come around to realize that the sort of horrors and reefer madness and all these things were largely overblown and just nonsensical in a way, and that they've really sort of embraced us and understand that we're a valuable asset to the community in general, both from the aspect of the tax dollars that our industry brings in. I think, it's no secret the state of Colorado is now wildly addicted to the tax dollars our industry brings in. And also just in the community in general, seeing what it's done for, reducing opioid dependence and alcohol sales are down, all these other things that are actually better for the community in general. And I think, here in Colorado, we've really proved the concept that, this can be done in a responsible manner and implemented in a way that actually benefits everybody across the board.
I love that answer, because that also leads into the name of the podcast, Elevated Culture. And I think that's what it's about. It's, it's as it's become more mainstream, everyone's learning more. It's becoming, I don't even want to say more acceptable, but people are more educated, and they're seeing that, like you said, this reefer madness and everything isn't there. The tax dollars are coming in, being put to work. These are business professionals, working in a regulated business just like anything else. And that's how it should be treated.
Yeah, it's just helping the economy in general. It's also the negative stigmatisms is kind of going away over time here, and people are finally realizing that it's not all a bad thing.
Well, and I still think there's a long way to go in that regard, but the strides that have been made and the difference I see now from when this first started is night and day. And when we first got this going, if you would have told us we'd be where we are today this soon and recreational legal and all these things, I would have told you were crazy. It's kind of amazing how fast this has all progressed and how the momentum it has, not just here in Colorado, but on a national scale. We're now operating in several states. I don't even know what the current count is because I feel like they're adding new ones
more to come.
On a weekly or monthly basis. But it's pretty awesome to see, and to see, how our footprint has spread across the country, that we're becoming a national brand now and not just something here in this market.
Right. Yeah, and very excited to be pioneers of it all. I mean, one of the first states to start it all and get it all going and try to really set an example for everybody out there. And it's been exciting to be a part of, and like you said, just how much it's progressed in how little time. It's amazing.
Yeah,
I also really love the sort of added resources I have here now as a cultivator and a breeder. I've talked about this a bit before, but I kind of got into knowing something about cannabis because my wife actually has MS and is had her medical marijuana card long before the sort of floodgates opened on all of this. And I sort of cut my teeth on indoor cultivation and breeding long before this industry really came about. And back then, we'd find, a strain that happened to work for symptom A, another strain that happened to work for symptom B, and I'd bump the uglies of them, and we'd try to find a one of the progeny that checked both those boxes off, but we didn't really know why. I didn't have any science to back this up besides, hey, this seems to work for this seems to work for that. Now with access to cannabinoid labs, terpene testing, all these other things, you can sort of correlate a lot of that data and start to figure out, well, this is why that one seems to be working for this. This is why that one seems to be working for that. And instead of having to run through and test by hand, 50 different ones, we send them to the lab. We know what the outcomes of them are and can select, which one had what we were going for with that. So seeing the sort of evolution of the resources available to us as growers is really, really amazing. And I think, I hope that continues to strive forward. I think there's still so much untapped potential there that we have to learn about this plant and how the various components of it interact with each other and with the person to have these, various effects.
Well, and it's something interesting. I was having a conversation the other day with someone and they brought this up. So I'm glad you're in here so I can ask you and get your opinion on this. As you're talking about being able to, breed your genetics for certain things and being able to have all of these resources, as this gets larger, there are people who have the concern that, when federal government says, okay, yeah, this is going to be accepting, we're going to accept this. They're going to kind of conglomerate it into a couple of very large businesses. And, talking to some farmers that I've spoken to out in Northern California, people here in Colorado, things like that. The main thing that they're saying that they don't want to lose with something like that, if that were to occur, is the genetic biodiversity of the plant itself. Because what you all have been doing as cultivators and as breeders is not only preserving that, but pushing it, and continuing to push it for all these different cannabinoids and terpene profiles and to try and hit these things. Are you worried in any sort of way, if that were to happen, hypothetically speaking, that it could just become, hey, this is sativa indica hybrid, and this is all you're getting?
That's all your options.
I don't think that's going to be the case because, no matter what happens on the sort of mass commercial scale, even if that were to be, become a monopoly or duopoly or anything like that, there's still going to be plenty of home growers out there that are going to have their own things. It's not like before this was legal and all of that there wasn't plenty of people doing this, and all of our starting material had to come from somewhere. It's all originally from clandestine sources. I mean, that's there's no secret to that there's no way that once these laws were passed here in Colorado, we just all of a sudden magically showed up with
everybody
plants.
just started.
Those came from somewhere.
States.
So I don't see a high risk of that, but I do hope as the industry matures and all of that some thought is put into ensuring that it doesn't become something where there's one or two large entities controlling the entire marketplace. I do think it's important for there to be, even within a market like Colorado, to have multiple entities out there. It's better for the consumer. It's better for sort of pushing the limits and competition.
Sure.
It's I think better for everybody across the board for there to be not so much condensation of, the entities in control of all of this.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think what you just spoke to kind of brings us back to the bank and cultivating trust and what you're doing. So can you kind of just talk to us about the bank and where the bank started and where it is today?
Yeah. Well, the bank kind of started as an idea we had, I believe in 2011 is when we actually sort of formally launched. Our original seed production was actually in the basement of one of our dispensaries. We had, there was a certain square footage of of each dispensary that could be dedicated to cultivation, and we obviously wanted to keep the pollen away from our larger commercial grows. So that was sort of an ideal spot to do it in. When we first started, for those that don't know, we actually operated under the name Reserva Privata Colorado. Yep. We had actually come to an arrangement with Don and Aaron at DNA Genetics to sort of use that moniker here in Colorado because, we didn't feel like we had enough of our name for ourselves yet to get into that game. Don and Aaron are good friends of ours, and we essentially just paid them a licensing fee to get to use that name, and then we actually used their LA Confidential, their exact cut, not some diluted seed form of it, as our original pollen donor.
That was the first series,
the very first series that was done, created in the basement of our Colfax location back in the day.
My favorite name from that series is Lohan.
Oh yeah, that's the old
The
train wreck.
LA
The train wreck LA
Yeah.
In
Confidential.
fact, that's where I first started, was the Colfax store, and that's where I met Jay here. And that was going on in the basement, and it was just all new to me, and it was just fantastic to watch and see, the process, and just be new to it and see someone that knew so much about it. Because, like you said, this isn't just starting just because we're doing it now. But
Yep, I used to see Jay in that basement as well. Yeah.
And
Working hard as always.
Brings
too.
back good memories. The old Colfax store.
Yeah.
My first home.
We don't cultivate in any of our dispensaries anymore. I have now have a dedicated space in a commercial building, but that is how things started. A couple years into it, we had run some focus groups and all of that, and sort of determined that the sort of clinic brand had more name recognition here in the Colorado market than Reserva Privada did.
Right.
And it was definitely not a small licensing fee we were paying Don and Aaron to use that name. And, we decided it was sort of better for both entities to kind of, have a break in our operations together. We rebranded as the bank instead of Reserva Privada. And, basically just because, again, the clinic moniker just carried more weight in this market. They knew us more than they knew DNA Genetics and Reserva Privada and all of that. And so, it made sense to part ways as business partners, not really technically business partners, but associates on that sort of front. They're still good friends of ours, and definitely still folks we talk to and love to see at events, but we no longer have any kind of formal relationship with them. I believe that was in 2013 is when we sort of formally made that switch over and rebranded as the bank, and it's been great for us. I really like our sort of simple branding with the clinic, the bank, the lab, all these sort of, very straight, simple to the point, know. But it's really been interesting to see how, this has all progressed on the genetics end, especially with the opening of the recreational market. It's definitely caused us to have a big shift in where our focuses are. When we first launched, we were mainly selling seeds at the retail level, both, wholesale for retail to, other shops, and then retail on our own shelves. These days, while that's still a big component of what we do, perhaps an even bigger component of it is actually supplying these larger outdoor grows. Most outdoor growers strongly prefer to grow from seed rather than clone, because when you grow from seed, there's a big taproot that comes out of the bottom of these. That has a number of advantages for the outdoor grower. The first being that it's actually, that taproot gets deeper than any of the ancillary roots, so it's makes the plants a lot more drought tolerant. It reaches down into water that otherwise a clone wouldn't be able to get to. It also really anchors that plant to the ground quite a bit better. So when there's big winds and rains blasting them, all these other things, they're able to withstand that a lot better and don't need as much support as something grown from clone. They're
able to hunker down with that root system, with that taproot.
Exactly.
Able to handle all the great conditions Colorado provides us with.
And, also given here in Colorado, all of the sort of commercial grows have strict plant counts, certain number of plants they can grow. The commercial ones, they don't want to waste half their plant count on males, so they tend to prefer feminized seeds. Yep. I do have a few clients that prefer regular seeds, and we do offer those as well for those, but I would say by far the lion's share of our business on that end is on the feminized seed game, which, is nice for a couple reasons. One, you don't have to thin males out. Two, the phenotypic variation seems to be a little less when you're working with both females, because you don't have sex-linked genes to worry about. You only have X chromosomes, so there's nothing when you're dealing with an X and a Y. You might have a trait that was present on that the male actually has, but it's covered by something on the female chromosome. But regardless, it's just nice to be able to offer that to this market, and I am just doing a rambling, terrible answer. If you can note this, delete this. I'm sorry.
That was a great answer.
Okay. We were talking about the first series, the LA Con.
The Confidential Collection.
The Confidential
This was
Collection.
actually before we started calling them series. It was a collection.
It was a collection.
Right. That was the original, the OG. But we've had many crosses since then. What are some of the other ones that we've had since the original?
The
cross?
first release we had was the Confidential Collection, all crosses utilizing the LA Confidential. We've since used quite a few different other pollen donors. I guess some of the more notable ones, we've done a Sour Diesel series, a Grape God series, Durban series, Bubba Kush series, Trainwreck series, an Afghan Ghost regular series.
Ooh, Space Ghost. Sorry,
that's a good one.
I had to mention
Space
that.
Ghost
Sorry, Jay.
That's actually kind of one of my personal favorites is that Space Ghost. If you're lucky enough to be able to find any of the remaining seeds of that out there on the shelf, I would grab them. I am gonna make more of those at some point, but those did sell through pretty quickly, and I've seen some really amazing phenotypes of that one. It's definitely one I'm pretty jazzed about.
I saw some of that finished product, and I haven't drooled over a strain in a long time, and I was kind of actually, I think, bothering Jay almost like, hey, so that Space Ghost, do you need some reviews on that? I'll definitely take that home instead.
Luckily, you will see more of that coming. That is one that we're getting into our production grow, and you will see that in much higher numbers than the little testers that I've run.
Okay, perfect.
And we do have quite a few offerings right now that I'm really excited about. Our Axilla is one that everybody that has grown this one is just really having great results with it. It's a fall 97 Bubba Kush cross. It has really low phenotypic variation because the parents are actually pretty similar in most of their traits. So if you pick any which trait on the plant and sort of spun it between the Bubba Kush and the fall 97, you're never going to veer too far off from what that could have been. So it's a pretty uniform progeny to it. Really, really high yields, really, really interesting terpene profile, and just an all-around winner. It's really one too that's really easy to grow too. So it's a really good way for a new grower out there that's looking to get into things to sort of cut their teeth on.
Okay.
But that being said, it's still high enough quality that it'll appease even the most discerning of connoisseurs. It's not like something like
it's a nice line to walk for a strain. Yeah.
And I know both those strains very well, so I can't imagine.
It's been really popular with the outdoor growers. Anybody who grew that one outdoors last season, like most of them have quadrupled their order of that strain for this year based on their successes with it last year.
Good to know.
Another one I really like are Crazy Glue, which is a Gorilla Glue number 4, which I think we need to call GG4 now. I'm going to get yelled at by our legal here. It's a GG4 crossed with Bubba Kush, but much higher phenotypic variation in this one because the parents are so different. But I really like these strains where you crossbreed two things that are so wildly different because you get so many interesting phenos out of it. And I've seen so many very different good ones of that strain. It's just really interesting, really high resin production on that one, and a really my favorite phenos sort of have that strain have the sort of depth to their terpene profile where they have that big chemical almost nostril singeing up frontness from the Gorilla Glue and then fade into sort of a sweeter, more chocolatey candy like Bubba on the exhale, and I just love those. Another one I'm pretty jazzed about that we haven't released on the retail level yet, but we'll be doing so very shortly here, actually on May 1st. You will see this. So this is, I guess, going to be the formal announcement of it. But
heads up.
Our
roll, please.
Akbar OG, which is an X-Wing OG crossed with our Fish Head Kush. For the Star Wars fans out there, I think they can sort of connect the dots on where that name came from. But
you had me at Fish Head.
Really, really phenomenal strain. Both the parents of this are sort of more on the earthy, garlicky side of the terpene spectrum. Really high resin production on both of them. The biggest difference I've seen in all the testers I've run in it is the height can really vary on this one because I'm taking our X-Wing OG is one of the tallest, leggiest strains we have. our fish head kush is one of the shortest, stockiest strains we have. When you crossbreed those two, you will see everywhere between the two in the progeny in terms of what their height's going to be. But almost every phenotype of it is really phenomenal flowers. To me, I'm sort of looking for phenotypes that are sort of in between the two in terms of height. I don't want something super leggy like the X-Wing or super short like the fish head. I want something that's a little tall, but like nice big plants.
Yeah, that's interesting insight too, because I was going to ask you that. What do you look for when you're looking for something to cross?
Oftentimes when I'm selecting a pheno for us, I'm usually looking for something that's right between the two or a blend of the two's traits. I'll often go into things, and anytime I'm doing pheno hunting, I sort of, have a chart I use where I list out all the different traits that are, branching, height, all these other things, and then pick which parent I would prefer this to come from. And I sort of use that as a guide as I'm selecting phenos. All that being said, sometimes you will have something that just goes totally off the script of what you were thinking you were going to get, and just is such a shining star, you have to throw out your here's my wish list sheet, but that one's the winner. Oftentimes that's what I'm trying to do. And it's a little different when I'm pheno selecting versus when somebody external to us would be pheno selecting, because they're just looking for what is the best phenotype they can find. I don't want one that's really close to either of the parents, because I already have the parents. I'm usually looking for something that's totally new or sort of splits the difference between the two. So it's definitely a little different what I might be looking for than what somebody else might be looking for. But, I usually do have something in mind that I was going for with them. Oftentimes I make a cross because I feel like two strains sort of fix the problems inherent in the other strain. Nice. So somewhere in that mix, you'll get the exact right phenotype. And, a perfect example I have of that that we offer right now is our cherry Zephyr, which is a cherry pie train wreck cross. These two strains, they both sort of have an Achilles heel almost. The cherry pie is really, really leafy. It's a phenomenal flowers, phenomenal terpene profile. But man, is that thing a bear to prune and trim, and it's kind of a headache to grow. It's kind of short, stocky little plant. Exact opposite, the train wreck is really sort of spindly, tall, leggy, sparse nuggets and all of that. And if you can but it has a really, really good flower to leaf ratio. There's almost no leaf on that train wreck. It's really easy to trim and all of this. So, when I think about a good example of an ideal phenotype of this, I'd want sort of the bigger frame of the train wreck, the heavier, bigger colas from the cherry pie, but the flower to leaf ratio of the train wreck, so it's not, tons of leaf to prune off.
That's what I was going to
this.
say. Those two strains too, the bud structure kind of will help even each other out a little bit too.
Yeah, and oftentimes I'll sort of, when I make my chart, I'll sort of prioritize, like, here's the thing that, like the Akbar OG, I was like, the thing I'm looking for the most is a split in difference between the heights. On this one, I wouldn't be, on the cherry Zephyr as an example, I wouldn't be as particular of which terpene profile sort of took over on all this, as long as I got the better structure that I was looking for, and so with each cross, that sort of varies what the sort of high priority things that I'm selecting for or thinning out might be.
Okay.
But, again, it's my process is internally is going to be very different than someone's externally, because they don't likely have the parents. In any cross, you'll have, sort of 10% of the phenos that really hardly lean to each parent, and, 10% will lean to the mother, 10% will lean to the pollen donor. And I throw those ones out because I don't need those.
Yeah.
Sometimes those might be really, really phenomenal strains though.
Yeah.
But
what you're looking for is what's complementing each one of those strains and what's kind of like matching in the middle. What is that best blend? That's the pheno you're looking for.
Yeah. And, again, every, project I do internally, externally, there's something I'm looking for with it. It's not just, throwing out a list of, hey, these all sound like fun strains, let's hit them all with that pollen. You know, there's something I'm thinking about when I'm doing that, whether that's sort of complementing terpene profiles, increasing potency, changing a cannabinoid ratio, whatever that may be, improving structure. There's a lot more thought that goes into these than I think a lot of people realize on how we're choosing which strains to cross with each other.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that, you've already talked about the Akbar OG May 1st release date. So you heard it here first, folks. Can
I plug a couple of the other May 1st releases?
I was about to
here?
say, is there anything else you can give us right now? Any upcoming releases?
The other two releases we're going to have here on May 1st are some oldies but goodies, re-releases of some stuff from our Fish Head Kush series.
Nice.
We're also going to have our Black Eyed Katie, which is our Fall 97 crossed with the Fish Head.
Great.
Definitely a
Amazing
fan
strain.
and employee favorite there that I think folks will be really excited to see return. The other one is our Fluff Head, which is a headband Fish Head Kush cross. Really, really, those were, probably the two most popular strains from that original release, and also ones that have been very popular on the outdoor growers. A lot of folks have had success with those, and what sort of led me to sort of reuse this pollen donor was that there was a lot of demand for me bringing back those strains and having them available on the bulk seed end. Anytime I sort of reuse a pollen donor and do another series, I'll sort of take the sort of greatest hits, whatever the top crosses were in the original release, and then try to get in, some other new fun stuff with it. Obviously, we have, we're constantly acquiring new genetics. Our library from year to year looks totally different than it did. There's always a few that stick around, but I have a lot of fun new toys to play with and to cross with her, and have some other new fun stuff coming from that series that'll be coming out in July 1st. We'll have another new seed release of some new strains. I'm not going to tip my hand on any of those just yet, but we do have quite a few more fun things from that Fish Head Kush series that are yet to come. Also on my next run after that, which these are all sort of in my internal testing rounds. Before I release them, I don't have actual approved strain names on any of these new crosses yet, but I will say my next series release after this is going to be a Fall 97 pollen donor, which, I've already mentioned that strain a few times in this podcast, but it's definitely both a staff favorite here. Anybody that's a customer of ours, I'm sure has seen it on our shelf. It's a really popular strain for us. Everything we've ever crossed with it has been gold.
It's a personal favorite of mine.
I haven't had anything yet that has I've not been psyched about on using that in a cross. So I was like, let's use that as a pollen donor. It's a really good yields, really amazing terpene profile, and it's again, just a proven solid breeding ingredient to use.
Yeah.
And in that series, I'm definitely trying to hit some specific things. There are quite a bit of the purpling to that flower, to the Fall 97 and late flower. So I've taken a couple other purple females to cross her with to make sure have some stuff that's getting purple from both parents, going to have a couple different purple offerings from it. I'm also because of the sort of intense terpene profile the Fall 97 has, I made sure I included some of our other big bold terpene strains like the Tangy, Durban, Headband, Panama Punch, things that are really gonna have these sort of interesting, unique terpene profiles to it. Also, because the Fall 97 is such a good yielder, I threw in some of our sort of heavier yielding strains with this, trying to make sure we hit all these little sort of niche desires that folks may have. Because when, a client calls me, it's like, what are your big yielding indicas? That's like, a question. Or what are your, what purples do you have? They sort of have this like, here's what I want. I want to have multiple offerings for any sort of request I might have on that front. And this line definitely allowed me to really hammer down and get some that are really, from the get-go designed to be, a heavy yielding this or a purple this or a big terpene punch that.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that. There's definitely some pretty amazing things I'm seeing in the test rounds I'm doing right now from that. And I'll definitely let you guys take a peek at those sometime soon.
I can't
because
wait.
There's definitely some fun stuff there.
I can't wait. So every time I go over to where you are, it's like a kid in a candy store, and I learn a million things. So thank you for that, and for
welcome.
doing what you do. And I know we're kind of winding down here, and we have some things to talk about as to also the bank's current focus and what you guys are doing. But I did want to ask this because you did just mention it. You were talking about choosing the different strains in order to cross them, and how you're looking to try and bring something from each one of them and kind of end up somewhere in the middle or leaning a little bit of the way. And you can obviously tell your passion and everything behind that, but I could tell a little bit of a perk up in your voice when you were talking about naming these strains.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to get your opinion on that and say and see how you feel about that, and what's your favorite strain name that you've been able to push through.
Naming strains is something that at times can be really fun. At other times can be very frustrating and aggravating. We'll come up with what we think is the perfect name for something. We'll sort of do some digging up and find some obscure seed bank in Spain or something already is, come out with the strain with that name, or our legal team will sort of put the kibosh on a really awesome name because of, some reason or another.
Those legal teams are good at that.
It's can be maddening at times. I definitely, have a lot of input from others when doing these. And, there's certain series where we have a lot of fun with it. Others that, we try to stick, pretty, white bread with our names in terms of bland stuff. We do have another, I might be tipping my hand a little bit too much here on future projects, but there's another series I've been working on for a while, which I am super excited about. And I originally tried to do this one as a feminized run, but unfortunately the pollen donor I was trying to use just would not give me viable pollen. So I actually took that female and have been in the process of cubing it and basically creating a breeding male of it so that I can use that and do it as a regular release using an actual male of this strain. I finally am have it back crossed enough times that I feel comfortable with where my males are at with that. And I'm currently actually selecting the male I'm going to do for this run, but it's actually our X-Wing OG, which is another one that a common ingredient. You'll see this in a lot of runs I do because I just love this strain. It's really, really high yielding for an OG. It's not finicky like most OGs are, where it has like trouble rooting, and if you look at it wrong, it just withers away. It's like a nice burly plant. It's sort of only Achilles heel is it is really tall. Everything else about this strain is just phenomenal. It regularly tests in the high 20s. I think the lowest cannabinoid test we've ever have on it was like 27%. So it's really high potency as well. And we've seen several tests in the low 30s on it as well. So it's really high potency. It's got a nice big garlic OG kick to it, and just a phenomenal strain. And it having a little history about this one. We actually got this strain under the name Skywalker 600.
Okay.
I remember that.
We already had a Skywalker OG in our library, and we thought it was going to be a little too confusing to our bud tenders and to our customers to have two things with Skywalker in the name. So we just sort of changed it from Skywalker 600 to X-Wing. So it sort of gave a nod to,
which is also a Star Wars reference.
Yeah, also a Star Wars reference. And, sort of a nod to the, name it came in by, but, wouldn't be quite as confusing to, our staff and our customers. So, and oddly enough, when we got it, it had just won the, medical cannabis cup here in Denver as in the hybrid category.
Oh, okay.
Under the name Skywalker 600.
Okay.
But anyway, the crosses I'm doing with this, given its sort of parentage, and this really is just a Skywalker, a special phenotype of Skywalker OG. I'm using all sort of Star Wars references with it, which is a common thing I do when I breed with this strain. I think the two other current offerings we have with it are it crossed with our Bubba Kush, which that's our Jabba, which really that just name came from Bubba and Jabba both having two B's next to each other, and it's sort of
I
made
like it.
sense.
It works.
It was easy to go from Bubba to Jabba.
Yep.
And then our Akbar OG, which is the fish head Kush cross, which again
May
for
1st, people.
Star Wars fans will get the reference there. But that entire line, I've had a lot of fun coming up with names for.
That's awesome.
Because I'm obviously a bit of a Star Wars nerd and have had some fun. There's a lot of sort of cool, easy references that came in with certain strains that I'm going to be crossing with that one. A few others that are a little more obscure. Takes a certain level of nerddom to actually get the reference on some of them, but should be a lot of fun when those ones come out. Definitely something I'm really looking forward to, and is also kind of a good thing. And I wanted to do it as a feminized pollen donor. It apparently doesn't have enough male hormones in the female to actually be able to produce viable pollen off of it, but I didn't let that sort of ruin my plans with it. I just had to go about it in a very different way, and it took a little longer. I'm now about 1.5 2 years into this cubing process with this one, so
because that takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it does take quite a bit of time, but it's well worth it. And I think as part of any breeding program, a really important thing. I'm doing that cubing process with sort of all of our top strains right now, in the background of what you guys may not be seeing on a day-to-day basis. But I'm taking basically any of our champion females, crossed it with a relatively bland, inert but vigorous male, and then keep back crossing that generation over generation back to the original target female. And I think a few years from now, I'm going to have a lot more fun, interesting ingredients to play with because of this. We've recently had regular seed releases. We are starting to do that. And, I know there's factions of growers out there that just have sworn off feminized seeds because they were sort of early adopters to the feminized seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And when feminized seeds first were released on the market, they were made very differently than they are now. And they had inherent issues to them that made a lot of folks sort of scared of them in the future. The sort of old school way of making feminized seeds was a process known as rotalization, where you would basically take a female that was already somewhat prone to hermaphroditism, stress the hell out of it until it actually went hermaphroditic. That would create feminized pollen that would then pollinate the females. But you would have seeds that all started off as female, but because you were working with genetics that were already inherently unstable and have stressed them out enough that they actually express that, there was way higher rates of hermaphroditism in the offspring using that method. So people that sort of bought these early generation feminized seeds saw these sort of skyrocketing levels of hermaphroditism and just swore them off forever. There's a much more modern, updated scientific way of doing this same thing, where essentially instead of stressing out a plant that's already prone to hermaphroditism, we can turn most females to produce male flowers with a little chemical trickery. And essentially what we do is we spray them with silver nitrate mixed with sodium thiosulfate, which then makes a silver thiosulfate solution. Spray that all over the plants as they're transitioning from vegetative to flowering stage. And what that actually does is it blocks the plant's ability to uptake copper. The copper is needed both to produce the female hormones and transport them throughout the plant. And if we sort of cut off that supply of that, we, sort of completely squash any female hormones that are being produced in that plant. Whatever low amounts of male hormones it does produce sort of take over that ratio, and they express male flowers on them. Every strain I've ever tried this with, I can get it to have male looking flowers on it. Some, won't produce any pollen, like the X-Wing. I couldn't get a grain of pollen out of the anthers on that. They looked male, but there was nothing in there. I've had a few others where they'll actually produce pollen, but that pollen isn't viable. They didn't have high enough hormone levels to produce viable pollen. But I would say 75-80% of strains out there of the female strains out there produce enough of these male hormones that I can get viable viable pollen off of a female using these methods. And then, when that pollen is applied, there's no Y chromosome present. You're guaranteed all of your offspring are going to be female, and there's no increased rate in hermaphroditism in those versus a sort of normally produced seed batch. You're only dealing with whatever inherent instabilities those parent strains may have, which isn't to say, you will still see some hermaphrodites. There's no way of completely eliminating that. That's just part of going from seed. It happens. But it doesn't increase those rates using these methods. Some people will still say, well, I popped, 50 regular seeds and I popped 50 feminized seeds and I found, 3 herms in my, regulars and I found 6 in my feminized. So it's got double the hermaphroditic rate. It doesn't really. That's actually exactly what you should see, because on the regular release, you culled half of them that were the males.
Yeah.
They were just male hermaphrodites. You just didn't ever see them because you removed them from the equation. So it's, something to keep in mind with it. But, for any growers out there that are in that boat where they bought into the feminized thing early and got burned on it, I would suggest, giving it another try. You'd be really surprised at how different these are these days versus where it was a decade or even, 15, 20 years ago. It's really, quite a different scene out there. And there's also that nice bit that, it's really well proven breeding stock when we're doing feminized seeds. We're using stuff that we've grown over thousands of rounds and really, really champion things. Whereas, when you're working with a true male, it's much harder to identify which one is really the right male to use, because you really don't know the quality of that male until you've bred with it and see the quality of its progeny. There's no way to sort of gauge. I mean, there's little tips and things you can look for in that male, but there's no sort of dead certain way to be that I'm using a good male here when you're doing that, unless you've used it before.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe this leads it back to what you were talking about earlier, which is the resources again. Also, that would, that's kind of a big thing.
Definitely.
Well, the knowledge you have, Jay, the passion. I mean, I just, again, learned so much. I mean, I've talked to you so much. I've watched you in seminars. I've watched you in speeches. I've spoken to you, as a friend and a colleague multiple times. And, always learn something new, even if it's something that we've spoken about before, I've heard you speak about before. So I appreciate you sharing all of this knowledge with us. And, I mean, there are some other ways that everyone else listening now can get this knowledge. The bank has kind of moved on doing a couple of different social media things. You guys are also doing, do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the big new things we're doing is a ongoing Facebook Live video series where both me and some of the other bank staff members are sort of doing these weekly videos, Facebook Live videos, where we're, we have Q&A ones where any sort of listeners, followers can ask us questions. We have ones where we're actually sort of tracking plants through from when we germinated the seeds, what we're doing with them in the vegetative stage. We're going to basically follow these same plants all along their process from popping the seeds all the way through, harvesting, curing, lab testing, Fino selecting off of that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, kind of walk folks through the whole process so they can see sort of what we're looking at, what we're doing at these various steps to get, from point A to point B. We've also got other ones that are sort of just quick tips in the grow. We'll see something that's, this is something interesting that, our, viewers might want to see, and we'll, pull out a phone and shoot a quick tip video on, here's how to, do this or see this or identify this pest. And, it's,
awesome.
We've had a lot of really good response to that too. I think that's, just a really good way to sort of engage our, customers and fans.
As far as the Facebook Live stuff, is there anywhere people need to know where to search for it, or is there any just certain times?
If you look up the Bank Genetics.
Yep, the Bank Genetics.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, so search for that on Facebook. You're going to find it. I mean, obviously, follow it, subscribe. You're going to get the alerts when the videos come on. I believe you have been shooting in recent past on Tuesdays, kind of midday. But the videos are also all cataloged, so if somebody misses it, it's not like you missed all of this knowledge. You can always go back and run through them.
Well, and even if people have questions, they can just reach out through Facebook.
Yeah, they can reach out through Facebook. I think we are going to start actually doing something to sort of encourage folks to ask more questions, and they're going to start doing some giveaways. If you ask a question that we actually use and answer in our question and answer videos, we'll give you a free seed cube or something like that. So we haven't sorted out all the details on that yet, but we are going to start to incentivize people to engage with us, ask thoughtful questions.
Excellent. That's
cool.
what needs to happen. Keep that dialogue open. So on top of that, I know that the bank is doing something with 420 coming up and Earth Day also coming up.
We're actually for Earth Day. This isn't a 420 specific thing. It's actually an Earth Day thing.
It just happens to coincide.
They happen to coincide, but we're actually going to be doing a massive clone giveaway where we are going to be giving away clones at several locations, both the clinic's internal locations and several locations across the state. In Denver, you'll be able to, these are sort of more doorbuster deals. So if you want to get these free clones, I would suggest getting there early because there's going to be a limited supply at each of these places. They're going to be at any of the the clinic's 4 Denver area locations, also in Denver, Kind Love, any of Altitude's 3 Denver area locations, both of the Denver Clone Store's Denver area locations, both of Sticky Bud's Denver area locations, Herbs for You. Outside of the Denver area, in Parachute, you can go to Kind Castle. Pueblo, you can go to Rocky Mountain Blaze. Idaho Springs, Mountain Medicinals. In Trinidad, you can go to either Freedom Road location. In Dillon, Altitude Organics. In Avon, High Country Healing. In Colorado Springs, the Canasur, Pagosa Springs, San Juan Strains, or Good Earth Meds. And also in Pagosa Springs, Pagosa Organic Therapy. In Durango, you can go to Prohibition Herbs, Colorado Grow Co., Durango Organics. Also in Cortez, you can go to Durango Organics. And on Sunday, Earth Day 422, you can pick up a free clone, but I would suggest getting there early because, again, there are limited amounts of these and they will run out. So,
yep. And just because of the legality, folks, it is 10 cents a clone, but, they're pretty much free. So
yeah.
Come check those places out.
There are legal regulations on giving stuff away. There is a limit of 1 per person as well, but we do have some really fantastic strains we're giving out as part of this. We have our Purple Urkel, which is the darkest purple strain you ever seen. Even in veg, the thing is purple. If when I breed with it, the seeds are so dark purple they almost look black.
Yeah.
We have our Lemon Hash Sour Diesel, which for folks that like the big yielders, that one is just a superstar. I'm not kidding, where you can get colas the size of your entire leg on these if you grow them well.
Sounds amazing, and I can't wait to try some.
Wouldn't like that.
It's got this really sharp lemon taste to it. It's a really big terpene profile, much higher quality than most of the strains you see that yield quite like that.
Right.
Really, really bold terpene profile on that one.
Nice.
Another one is our Blueberry Headband, which is another really, really big yielder, really high quality as well. And then our Jack Flash, which is one of my personal favorites. It's a little lower on the potency scale, is kind of the one knock to it. It sort of peaks out at 18 to 19% THC,
So tasty,
which, used to be pretty cool. These days, that's kind of on the lower end of the potency side of things. But
which is wild.
I'll tell you what,
Fair
if
enough.
that one had 0 THC, I would smoke it all day long because it just tastes so amazingly good. It's got this like perfumey floral taste to it that and I mean that in the best possible way. I know when I say that, that's sort of off-putting to people, but
you think
I don't have a better way to explain it. I mean, it's just phenomenal. The
It does
terpene
taste
profile
terrific.
on that one. It's one that I just love. When I see a plant of it, I have to stop and smell the roses. I just love that terpene profile.
Yeah.
That's great. So, folks, if you heard any of those places on that list you just listed off, definitely go check out their deals. Like I said, they're an Earth Day clone giveaway, 10 cents a pop. But, yeah, first ones through the door will probably get access to those. So, visit those local places and across the state, and you'll be able to get in on that deal. And it's just a great promotion for Earth Day. And it obviously is a couple days after 420, so it's busy out there, but go out there and get yourself a clone.
Yeah.
If you're ever, we're thinking about getting into it, this would be a great opportunity to get some, really high-end genetics and,
Yeah, and then follow the Bank Genetics on Facebook, watch the videos,
learn
and
how to grow
maybe
it.
one day you will become a master cultivator and a head breeder like our buddy Jay here.
All got to start somewhere. I got my first clone back in the day, and I remember that. It's
And here we
come
are.
a long way since then.
Yeah.
But everybody, that's usually the starting point, either from a seed or a clone.
Yeah.
Got to start somewhere.
Yep.
Awesome.
I do have one other thing I'd love to talk about.
Yeah, I was
which,
just about to ask you before we got out if there was anything you wanted to bring up.
Well, this is a company-wide thing with the clinic, but as you know, we've been heavily involved with the National MS Society for a number of years now. And upcoming on May 5th, we have the Denver MS Walk. We'd love for anybody out there that would like to join us is more than welcome to. You can just throw these simple search terms in Denver MS Walk into a Google search. You'll find the webpage for that. Search for our team, The Clinic Colorado. Please join. You can have your friends join, your family join, anybody like this, but we're raising a lot of money for a really good cause here on this day. Our corporate team, we're now in our 9th year of doing this.
Wow.
We've raised over $600,000 to help fund research for a cure for MS and to fund programming for those living with MS and their families here in Colorado. Last year alone, we raised over $100,000 for this cause. So
Huge
we're
deal.
That's
really, trying to get as many folks out there engaged with this. And, please feel free to join our team. Come out there, meet with us. We're going to be there and have a tent in the team village, engaging with the public, letting them know about, all of our product offerings. Anybody that has MS, if you want to, talk to me about what might specifically help your various symptoms of that, I'd be more than happy to do that. We're also going to be handing out some coupons for our stores at the event there. And also that weekend of the event, there will be a percentage of all of our sales that weekend that actually go right to our fundraising total for the walk. So any dollars you spend at our store the weekend of May 5th, please know a portion of your sale will be donated to that cause.
Yeah, and we'd love for you to join. Like Jay said, Google it. Google MS Walk Denver. Look for the Clinic Colorado team. You can sign up. You can join. You can raise money yourself. If you can't do that, even if you can just, if you want to donate $1, it is for such a good cause, and it has come so far. It's something that the clinic is obviously very passionate about. Jay just listing off how long we've done this, and it's for a reason, and that reason is it's a good cause and it's a worthy cause, and it's something worth fighting for and finding a cure for.
It's a lot of fun too to see everybody come out for a great cause like that, and it's at City Park in Denver.
It's a fun time.
Yeah,
it's a really great place. We always have a good time out there. Just prepare. It could be 70 degrees or it could be snowing. You just never know.
And I'd also like to mention for any of those listeners that may not be able to make it day of the event, whether they live out of market or just have other plans that day, you actually can sign up as what they call a virtual participant and still help fundraise for the cause, even if you can't make it to the event. The MS Society has also done a wonderful job of having tools that help you fundraise through social media, making posts on Facebook that link right to your sort of fundraising page and all of that. So they really do try to make it as easy as they can on you to raise money for this cause. And, I know we've got sort of this big 420 holiday and Earth Day promo coming up. And as soon as that's through with, my focus is going to be right on that MS walk.
MS walk.
It's right around the corner.
And if you are a virtual participant, I just need to say it up front, you need to be walking in place the morning of. So that's part of it. I'm actually just joking. That's not part of it.
And you know what? I'm feeling generous here too. So if any of our listeners actually do join our team and raise some funds there, I'm going to go ahead and say just, reach out to us on social media. Let us know who you are and that you joined the team. And I will make sure we have some giveaways actually for those listeners that actually join our team. If you're a fan of the Bank Genetics, I promise you will like what these giveaways might be.
All right. Hey, if let them know you heard it through Elevated Culture from the clinic, and we will definitely hook you guys up.
If I wasn't a fan before, I am now, but I've always been a fan. So,
well,
Jay, thanks a lot for coming by. This has been, it's been great.
Well, and I appreciate you having me and getting a chance to talk about what it is we do over there at the bank, and hopefully our listeners learn something. And if they, again, have any questions about what we do, go ahead and head over to our Facebook page and you can ask them right on there. And again, if we actually do answer that question in one of our videos, you may be getting some freebies there as well.
There's some incentive, folks, so go ahead and do that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jay.
Thanks again, Jay.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, thanks a lot to our special guest, Jay. That was a really great interview. I hope you guys all learned a lot. I know that we all always learn a lot from Jay whenever we interact with him, talk to him, outside of work or at work in general. He is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to genetics and, the plant itself. So that was, wow. I mean, it just kind of blew my mind there. Matthew, what do you think?
Blows my mind every single time I talk to the guy. Every single time I watch a video of him on Facebook Live, anything like that. I mean, that literally he is a walking encyclopedia, and he is very dedicated to his craft and to the culture and to the business and to what he's doing.
I think you just nailed it right there. Definitely, that guy is something else. So thanks a lot again for Jay coming through and giving us some of his precious time, because we all know he's a very busy man. So thanks
Thank
again,
you,
Jay. Thanks again, Jay. Yes. So what else do we got going on, Matthew? What do you want to talk about?
I think I want to talk about what you're token about.
Oh, I like how you spun it right into the token about.
Yeah.
All
so,
right.
What are you token about?
Oh, you know
these
what
days?
I'm token about. Let's see. What have I been token about? Well, everyone knows I love the Ghost OG.
Yeah.
That's one of my faves as well. Last week it was Bubba. This week it's Ghost.
Even known as the Ghost.
Yes.
Very elusive.
Very elusive. No, that's the Ghost has always been a staple around here, and also just a fantastic indica with a little bit leaning to the hybrid. I love it. It's great for my head. It puts me in a good spot. Doesn't put me down and out though either. So
Excellent.
That's one that's keeps me functional.
It's good.
Very strong as well. Very strong. Super tasty.
I love it.
What's on your plate these days? What do you got going on? What you token about?
I mean, right now, I think one of my favorite tricks out of my bag right now is the key lime pie batter that I have. Not only is, when you're smelling it and looking at it, is it amazing? I mean, everything there is appealing visually, aromatically, but then when you taste it and you burn it, it's all the way through. I mean, literally that flavor comes all the way through, nice. Not only just on the inhale, but on the exhale. I've really been liking that a lot. And then, flower wise, man, I gotta say, I've been going back to my homie, my dog, that Star Dog Guava, man. It's yes. My favorite. I love it so much.
Very versatile.
It's an amazing flower. Yes. I mean,
2012 Cannabis Cup winner. Let's not forget that.
Yeah,
it's
and
been
then
a hit ever since it made its appearance on the shelves of the clinic stores back in 2012.
Yeah, oof. It's a favorite of mine. I mean, it is in my top 3 favorite, and I just love that strain. I love the way the way it interacts with my mindset, my biochemistry.
I think I hear that a lot. Actually, a lot of people talk about. Should I say?
Yeah,
the Star Dog Guava. It's just it's a staple around here as well. It's one of the best strains that we have. People continually come in looking for that strain in every form. But the flower, I think I like the most.
The flower is amazing.
Yes,
yeah.
definitely.
I love it. Other than that, I mean, I think we got to say happy 420 once again to everyone.
Of course.
I think we got to hit off a couple of things just to let people know where to find us, if they don't know where to find us already on the internet, right?
Of course, yeah. We got a few plugs over there. You got some
spots? I mean, I got a couple of plugs, you know.
Right, hit us up.
So the cliniccolorado.com is a great site to check out all of the information on the Clinic Colorado, all of the events we're doing. We talked about, the MS Society, the MS Walk. We talked about that. We have the Charity Classic Golf Tournament coming up. You can find your information there and link through. Also check out the bankgenetics.com for all of your seed and genetics needs and information. And obviously you can read into that. And then again, reach out to Jay, like he said in the interview. Reach out to him. Maybe sign up for the MS Walk. Then reach out through Facebook, and then maybe get a nice little deal there. And then the labcolorado.com for all of your concentrates, wants, and needs, knowledge, and information. On Facebook, that's going to be the clinic. That's going to be the Bank Cannabis Genetics and the Lab Infused Products. So just type those into the search bar. You're going to find it. You're going to know it's the right one. Like it, subscribe, comment, engage. That's kind of really what it's all about. And then last and not least, well, actually not least, because I actually have one more after this, but the Instagrams are going to be the clinic _Colorado. Find us there on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Then also find the Bank Genetics on there, no spaces, and the Lab Colorado on there with no spaces.
Awesome.
So other than that, we also talked about this last time on the podcast, Dan, and we have now opened up the floodgates. We now have an email address that you can email us. You can tell us what you're token about. You can ask us questions, give comments, critiques, And praise to Dan for hosting this show and doing an
Matthew.
amazing job.
Oh, well, thank you. I couldn't do it without you, Matthew. You know that.
I think you could, and it might be better, Dan.
Oh,
With all of that aside, everyone, please feel free to email and interact with us at any of those sites or at our email address, elevatedculture@thecliniccolorado.com.
Thanks again for joining us on the second episode of Elevated Culture, presented to you by The Clinic. Again, I'm Dan Mosley, alongside Matthew Stafford, my trusty sidekick. And again, happy 420. Everyone be responsible out there, be conscious of others, and just, follow the rules out there. There's a lot of them. So thanks, guys.
Compliance, not defiance.